Welcome to Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. On this podcast, my guest and I will discuss topics and ways to help us to heal in every area of our lives. I believe that everyone can live a life that is happy, healthy, and whole. So I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for tuning in. Let's get to it. Hey guys, real quick, before we jump into the episode, I need you to do the 3 S's for me. What is that? First of all, I need you to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss an episode of our podcast. Number 2, I need you to share it with your family and friends. Don't keep it to yourself, share it with someone else. Lastly, I need you to say something. Leave us a comment. Let us know how we're doing. Let us know what you want to see from us, what you like, what you don't like. We are open to your suggestions. We want to know everything that you want to let us know about the podcast. All right. Now, get back to the episode. All right. Welcome to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. I am your host, Earnest James, and I believe that everyone can and should live a life that is whole, healed, and healthy. And therefore, I'm on a mission to help people to deal, heal, and fulfill, to deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. If you haven't already, make sure to listen, like, subscribe, and share our podcast on all of your podcast listening platforms, as well as make sure you are checking us out on our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. Again, that's the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network on YouTube, where you will find the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, which is our sister podcast, as well as the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, in which we are listening to right now. So again, make sure you guys go to check out, Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, the Girl Dad Discussions podcast on our YouTube channel, which is the Deal to Heal Podcasting Network. Make sure you guys are checking us out there. Also, our podcast is brought to us by our new school platform, which is the Deal to Heal School for Living, which is to help us to further our mission to help people deal with their problems, heal from the pain, and to feel their purpose. On this platform, it allows us to bring you resources and workshops, more resources and workshops than we do, but we can do it there. So make sure you guys go check that out. The link is in the description, or you can just scan the QR code in our upper corner. Again, it's the Deal to Heal School for Living, where we have other resources and workshops that's available there. And the first 7 days is absolutely free, so you guys can go and check it out. If you like it, stick around. You get access to a new workshop every month. And so you guys can check that out. So again, that's the Deal to Heal School for Living on the school community platform. Yes, so that's that. But today, just like any other day, we are blessed with a guest, Miss Keana. How you doing?
I'm good, King. How are you?
I am well. I am well. First of all, let me say thank you for being here. You could have been anywhere else with anyone else, but you're here with me and my listeners, and we definitely appreciate it. So do me a favor, Miss Keana. I want you to introduce yourself to my listeners. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what it is that you do.
Absolutely. First, let me just say thank you for having me here. And I am Keana Statten. I am a transformational speaker, emotional literacy consultant, and the author of Healing Out Loud, which is similar to the platform here. But it's my story, but it's also a workbook. It's a guide to help people start to unpack their emotional pain, emotional trauma, emotional baggage, so that you can reclaim your power, step into your purpose. And I help people start to put language to emotional literacy and emotional health, teaching people the things that we didn't have so that we can start to live a more righteous, purposeful, driven life.
I like that. I like that.
Thank you.
And I definitely want to dive a little more deeper into that. So before we do that, let's go back to your story. I always say there's a story before the story, right? And
Absolutely.
so, who was the earlier Kiana? Before you got into the space that you are now, and what was that initial event, should I say, that happened in your life that you kind of made it through, and then decided to, you know what? Now that I've kind of made it through my healing journey, that now I want to help others to kind of make it through their healing journey as well.
Great question. Prior to stepping into this space, I was a human resources professional. I worked in human resources for 16 years. I lived the average American dream, was married with a child, 9 to 5, white picket fence, house family. But on the
Mm,
inside, I was suffering in silence from
mm,
deep, deep, deep grief, emotional trauma, things that I had never actually had a chance to address. I lost my mom when I was younger, and that just opened up an entire layer of healing that I had yet to address until I became an adult woman. And I went through a lot of trials and struggles, a lot of tests, a lot of ups and downs, a lot of battles that God put me through. And I didn't always make the right choices or the right decisions, but eventually I got right back on the right path. And when my marriage was coming to an end in 2019 is when I thought I was hitting my breaking point, thought I was hitting rock bottom when I actually did attempt suicide and survived. And
mm,
it was that breakdown that helped me realize I was just a breakthrough because I survived it. Because every time I had to learn how to heal my wounds, the closer I became to God, the closer I was able to hear and start to understand and see that everything that happened to me was building me up to get to my purpose. So
mhm.
now I can help somebody else survive. Hold their hand while they save themselves.
Yeah, yeah. I like that. I like that. And several things stuck out to me in your story because I can relate to it. I did lose my mom as well. I left my mom. I was older when I lost my mom, but definitely lost my mom as well as went through a divorce as well, which is kind of what kind of catapulted me
Hmm.
into everything that I'm doing now. And not that the divorce was bad; it just was a decision that we came to, and going through that time period of the divorce and losing my mom and some other things that was happening at that time, I too had suicidal ideations, which is something I talk about, very openly. I actually did my first TEDx talk the year before last, I believe it was, and that was my discussion, talking about it, and have been very open about it because I survived it. I didn't attempt, but I was close you know and so making it through that, I believe, again, like you said, that God was putting me in position to do the work that I do now, to have the conversations that I have now. And there's been so many conversations that I've had, especially surrounding suicide, since then with
Yeah,
other people, and allowing them to be able to, just provide a safe space. And not even just on a podcast, just in my day to day life,
absolutely.
to provide a safe space for them to be able to talk
Yeah,
and kind of talk about the things that they're dealing with, which is a lot of times what a lot of people just need. They just need to be
yeah,
heard, or they just want to be heard, you know what I mean, in order to get some of those things that they've been carrying off their chest, off their
right,
shoulders,
right.
and to be in a safe space to do so as well. So that those couple of things that you were talking, I was like, yep, check, check, check that box. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? So when we're talking about healing, right, which is definitely where we do here, and talking
Mm.
about the whole healing space, because I believe that, we all go through a period of time and where we need to heal and we need to address different things in our lives. And sometimes we are so busy pushing forward, pushing forward, pushing forward, that we never take the time to heal. And those things, we just end up dragging it throughout our lives, right? And not realizing that, we're dragging this ball and chain, through our lives, and it's tearing up everything behind us, you know. And so when we're talking about, healing, just in your journey, what has been one of the most impactful things that you can share with us, that even as a tip or a tool, just to start the journey of healing, from whatever that thing may be that you're trying to heal from?
First thing I would tell somebody is basically start by getting honest with yourself because healing starts within. Only you know the pain that you're dealing with. Only you know the good and the bad and the ugly parts of yourself that you don't like. But it's in that space that you can start to unpack that. The more honest you are with yourself is the more the healing begins. So it starts by looking in the mirror and asking yourself the questions that we don't often want to ask ourselves. And that is, what is it that I don't love about me? That I don't
Mhm.
know I'm worthy and deserving enough to heal and let this go because we're nobody's victims and we're not meant to constantly live in survival mode. Like I said before, we're in the healing generation, we're in the healing era right now. So you can't outrun yourself. Trust me, I tried it. And
Mhm.
now we get the opportunity and the chance in this lifetime to heal, not only for ourselves, but for our children, our grandchildren, our nieces, our nephews. We get to heal for the legacies to come. And that is why I try to constantly encourage people to just to start with self because we can't give anybody else what we don't already have.
Yeah, yeah, and I do the same. I always say start with you because you're the only one that you can control,
Mhm.
right? Start with you because the things that you do affects your life, right? And
Yes,
so when we start with ourselves, then we're able to start, that healing process. And I remember having a conversation with someone, years ago that I was in a relationship with, and they had some traumas from childhood that they were carrying, and I remember telling them like, I can't heal you.
that's
You know what I mean?
right.
Like I can't
Ooh,
heal you for you. You know what I'm
yes.
saying? Like it's a personal journey. I can help you as much as I can. I can be a listening ear. I can even give you, tips and tools that maybe I've
Hmm.
learned, but you have to apply it to your
Yes,
life. You have to do the work in order
yes.
to heal from the things that's been affecting you. And like you said, those things when they're not addressed, they continue, and sometimes we end up passing it on to our children. So now we got generational curses and
Yes.
generational,
Um,
traits and generational habits that we just pick up or pass along to our children, and they pick up because it's like, oh, this must be,
we
what we
mimic what
do.
we see. Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's it. Monkey see, monkey do. And I love how you say that because we mimic that. And like you said, even with our partners, we two unhealed adults. Because most
Mhm.
likely than not, all of us have some unhealed mommy, daddy wounds, things from our childhood that we don't even recognize. So we just grow older. Now we are two emotionally unavailable, trauma bonded individuals. Now we're about to create a family, have more children. At some point, somebody got to be accountable for us living more righteously, being able to put the language and the words to how we feel emotionally. Because I know in the black family, I don't know anybody that taught me how to heal, but I always heard just be strong, just survive,
Mhm.
just keep going. That's all fine and well and good, but how do I do that if you haven't given
Right.
me the tools and you haven't given me the framework or shown me how? So that's why we, as the change makers now, the leaders for today, we get to create that. That's what I do. I teach people the language, emotional literacy, because for me, emotional literacy is the key to healing your emotional wounds, the trauma, the grief. Because once you can put language and understand what it is that you're feeling and actually tell a partner, I don't feel like I'm seen. I feel like I'm being abandoned. I'm feeling like I'm unloved, even if it's not right. You have the right to express how you feel. And I
Mhm.
tell people feelings are not right nor wrong, they just are. But if you can start by at least being honest with what you feel, then that's a step towards healing.
Yes, yes. And I want to touch on something you said, or two things that you said.
Hmm.
And two things. One of the things you said about us being too, I don't know, I can't think of the exact words that
To
you said,
unhealed
but just
adults,
too unhealed
trauma
adults. Yes,
bonded.
that's it.
Yes.
And I think that that's something that we have to address because we don't oftentimes address it, and sometimes our traumas may look different but
Yes.
still connect, right? And so for those, of course, my listeners probably are definitely heard this story many times before, but the way that I even got into all the work that I'm doing now is kind of as I was going through my divorce, one of the things that I realized was that every woman I ever dated was a fatherless daughter, right? And
Talk about the
so as
pattern.
I started a page called Friends to Fatherless Daughters, fast forward anyway, that's the whole thing. But what I learned was, even though my upbringing was different, right? Because I was raised in a two-parent household with my mom and
Mhm.
my dad, so I didn't have the trauma of fatherlessness, but I still had some traumas from my childhood that I brought into, every relationship that I came into, and it wasn't until I got to the point where I recognized that, okay, I'm talking to fatherless daughters. Like, either I'm attracted to them or they're attracted to
Mm,
me. But for me to always connect with fatherless daughters, it's something about me and it's something
yeah,
about them where we're connecting. And I even had to
yeah,
kind of go into my past and, like, okay, if I had both of my parents, then it's not that. It got to
right.
be something else. And being able to even go back into my earliest relationships and realizing where that hurt was or where that hurt came from, that was
Hmm.
allowing me or attracting,
Yes,
this hurt part of women that I didn't even know, right? Because
yeah.
I was in my, once I was in my 30s when, no,
Hmm.
not 30s. Yeah, maybe 30s, late 30s, early 40s, something like that, when I started, going through this transition. So we're talking about years of dating and never even
Trauma.
recognizing this connection
Yeah,
that was happening. And so, yeah, and I think we have to acknowledge that just because my trauma may look different than yours don't mean that it doesn't exist. You know what I'm saying?
absolutely.
And it does not neglect yours as well. And I think that's something that we also have to do and not do, is to compare traumas. Because
Right.
what may have been hard for you may not have been hard for me. Right.
Absolutely.
And it may have not affected me the way that it affected you, but it doesn't change the fact that you were affected by it.
Well, the
You
fact that we
know,
all have different breaking points. We all have different triggers.
yeah, yeah, and I like also what you were saying about having the words, to put the words to it. There's a book that I always mention that I came across, called The Emotional Thesaurus, right? And
Mm,
it gives you language for every
yeah,
emotion. So it gives you like different ways to say I'm upset and different ways
yeah,
to say I'm angry. And I always promote that book because I think it's so important, because a lot of times we don't express ourselves with some of the things that we're going through because we just don't have the words. And it was like, okay,
exactly.
let's learn different words. Let's learn
That's
different
it.
ways to say it. Because sometimes if we say I'm angry, especially as an African American and an African American woman
Yeah.
or a man, like, you don't want to be the angry black man. You don't want to be the
Right.
angry black
The
woman.
angry black
So how
woman.
can I
Yeah.
say I'm angry without saying I'm angry?
Without the emotion. Right.
Right. How
Right.
can I express that this is how I'm feeling in a way that I can verbally say it,
Mm-hmm.
without it triggering someone,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and those nature. So I always like to promote that because I think that is a great resource, to be able to just find the words to
Yeah.
say what it is that you're trying to say. Um, Also, I want to talk a little bit about the connection of healing, not only on a human level but also a spiritual level, because I know
Mm.
one of the things that you mentioned, that healing is a spiritual journey, and I definitely believe that as well. So can you give us a little bit more of that idea, that viewpoint of the connection of healing and spirituality?
So what I tell people and what I often teach about is there's levels to healing. Healing is multifaceted. And I know after I went through my suicide battle, recovering from that space, there was still another layer of healing that I had yet to even touch. And I didn't
Mhm.
know that at the time. I thought I was, back to being normal. But then I had another situation occur where another relationship just ended. So that triggered my abandonment wound. Now, because I already
Mhm.
got this knowledge, I know this, but it was at that moment that I said, God, what is it about me that keeps attracting these
Yeah.
type of partners that keep pulling away from me? I know what I want, but why is it that I'm getting the opposite? It's not them, God, it's me. Help me, show me what it is that I'm missing. And I went on an entire spiritual sabbatical. When I turned 40, I had a spiritual awakening, and it was in that moment where I realized I still had not stepped into my spiritual evolution, the spiritual part of healing. And that's when I was able to finally let go of all of the wounds that I had in terms of love and what I thought love and connection looked like, and started to love on me first. The godly, gifted woman that I am.
Mhm.
When I started loving on that, the God in me, see, that's when things shifted. That's when I stepped into my purpose. That's also when I heard God clear as day say, it's time for you to write your book. It's time for you to share your story. And it was that helped me elevate, and that's why I'm in the seat that I'm in today. That's when I decided I am going to share my story, not only the suicide, but all of it, all of the parts that we don't ever want to talk about, my struggles in relationships, the way I showed up needy and emotional, emotionally avoidant, emotionally dependent, because I didn't have it, but I also didn't have a connection with nothing greater than me. So it was on that path of recovering that I started to see, oh, healing is not just mental, it's
Yeah.
spiritual, it's emotional, it's physical, because it's all encompassing. God created the mind, body, and soul. So you don't just heal one area. Oh no, you heal inside out. And that was when I stepped into the spiritual path and started doing the spiritual healing.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I want to talk about the suicide, right? If you don't mind, as much as
Yeah.
you mind sharing, because when I didn't start talking about it until I started my podcast, right? I
Okay.
didn't start talking about my experience, but I remember once I started the podcast and I started to have the conversation on the podcast. I got eight siblings, right? It's nine of us all
Okay.
together, and my baby sister called me after one of my earlier episodes and was like, "How is it that you went through all of that and none of us know?" Right? Like
Mm,
it's nine of
mm,
us. Like none of us know that you were that low and
exactly.
that you were dealing with that. And I said, "Well, it's because we're not having the conversations."
Right.
And when
Right.
we're checking on each other and we say, "Hey, how you doing?" and I say, "Hey, I'm fine," and then we just accept that as truth
Just face
without
value.
really saying no,
Hmm.
but really, how are you doing? Especially when we know that there is something going on in our lives, right? And so again, I was going through divorce, I was going through depression, I was going through debt because we were in a recession, um, and my
All the
mom
things.
died, and
Mm.
my mother-in-law, former mother-in-law, passed away as well, and I was very close to her, and so I was dealing with a whole lot all at the same time, and that's how I found myself in that dark space. And I tell people, a lot of times people don't understand, and even recently having this conversation with a loved one of mine, and they're just like, I really can't understand because I would never think of taking my own life. And I always say, I hope you never understand it.
I know.
I hope you never get to the point where you can say, I understand how you feel,
Right.
because that's a low point that a lot of people don't come back from. You know what I
No.
mean? It's a low point
No.
that a lot of people don't make it back. And so I would rather you just take my word for it. You know what I
That's
mean? Take
it.
my word for it that it's painful and it's a dark space and it's a space that nobody expects to be in until you
Not at
start
all.
to
Were you there?
experience the pain of being in that space. And I always tell people, when you get to the point when you're thinking about, or when a person is thinking about taking their own life, it's not that they want to end their life, they want to
They just
end the
want to
pain.
end the pain.
They want to
Absolutely.
end the pain. Yeah.
Yeah.
So as much as you like to share, because I
Absolutely.
think there is healing in the conversation. Again, like I said,
Mhm.
I did mine on a big stage with on the TEDx talk and telling about my experience. But as much as you would like to share of the space that you were in when you were, even considering it, and the attempt, and sort of how did you come out from that space?
So one thing I often tell people is that making the choice to end your life or to attempt suicide is not something you just wake up with.
Mhm.
It's multitudes of things, layers and layers of pain,
Yes.
grief, anxiety, trauma, lifing. And eventually, for me, the head and the heart became disconnected. See, I stopped listening to my heart, because see, that's how God is communicating, that's how God is connecting. I stopped praying, I stopped talking to God, and my marriage was ending. And I told you that abandonment wound was triggered. See, I lost my mother when
Mhm.
I was 16. I lost a lot of people in my life. And the only thing I can think of is here I go again, getting ready to lose somebody else that I love, the closest person to me. Lost my dad. I'm an only child. Entire
mm,
maternal mother, father side of the family, everybody is gone. It's just me and my husband and my son. Who am I if I don't have this person? I am alone in this world. So
mm,
that's how the thought started. And then it just kept piling up and piling up. And it became very toxic because he and I decided to go our separate ways, but we were still under the same roof. That's unhealthy. And even though I thought that was going to be okay, it was not. And it was eventually, it just kept becoming more and more turmoil. And I can remember having dreams and nightmares of me standing on the cliff, standing on the edge, holding my hand on the other side. So it's me versus me. And constantly having this dream. And it was my psyche saying, don't give up. I know you're at the edge, but don't give up. But it was one breaking moment when he and I, my husband, because he was my husband, but we had a very bad, tumultuous argument, and then that was it. I said, that's it. There's no need for me to be here. You'll be better without me. You're a great dad. You can be mom and dad for our son. Because right now, me being in this world is doing more disservice than it is service. So let me just check out, and everybody will be okay. Because when you're not okay mentally, and you're not connecting to your heart, your head will tell you that that's it. You're not worthy of life. The devil within is going to make you feel like it's not worth it. Right. And so I attempted. I attempted. But I also kind of gave signals and clues prior to my attempt. So even though I attempted, people were helping me because they knew something wasn't right. So I got the
mm,
help that I needed. It came before I can go to sleep because my choice was pills, and they got me before I could go to sleep, took me to the hospital, and I was in behavioral health unit inpatient for 8 days. And I wasn't happy. I was confused. I was all over the place. One minute I was happy, one minute I'm confused, one minute I'm disappointed, one minute I'm like, you can even do this right. And you
mm,
don't just go back into your life like it's
mm,
normal, because that's trauma. That's something extremely traumatic. The people around you will never be the same. You will never be the same. But I had a
mm,
10 half year old, 11-year old son at the time. And imagine what his life would have been like if he didn't have his mother here, because I know what that felt like. So he was the main reason why I said I got to try. I got to do better. And when we finally did separate and I moved into my own space, this was during the pandemic, during COVID. Peace be still. Everybody was sitting still. I had no choice but to figure me out. I had to get my shit together. And that's exactly what I did. And that was the best thing God could have did for me, because it made me sit in silence, sit in peace. And I just started asking myself questions, and I started praying and listening to God. And I found somebody to help me work on my emotional trauma and help me start to unpack it. And every day was not easy, because
mm,
nothing in life is. But even on my worst days, I still know it's just a moment. Before, I used to panic. I say, oh my God, I'm about to go back there. I can't give up. I'm not about to do this again. And I almost did. I'm not going to lie, because within that first year, the chances of doing it again is highly likely. And I almost did it again, but I went back into the hospital because I didn't have the guts. I didn't have the nerves to do it. But I also knew that that second time I went back in, I said, this is it. I don't like it here. And this is just an excuse. You know, you bigger than this and you're stronger than this.
mm.
And from that moment on, I kept fighting one day at a time.
Yeah, yeah. I want to talk about two things that you mentioned. One of the things that you mentioned is about the pile up of things, right? And I always refer to it. There's a song by the artist formerly known as Most Def. I can't. I think it's
But
Yasin Bey. I think that is
yes,
is the
yep,
name
I
that he
seen
goes by
Bay.
now.
Yeah.
But he has a song called Mathematics. It's one of his earlier works.
Okay.
But there's a line in the song, and I'm not going to say it verbatim, but it's basically he says, "You talk about the straw that broke the camel's back."
Hmm.
Dang it, and it just kind of went out of my mind. Um, oh, the straw that broke the camel's back. But here's the secret: it's not the straw that's on the top, but it's the millions underneath it, right?
Mm.
And so I always tell people that, especially when you get to that space when you're really considering, what ending your life is
Hmm.
not the thing on the top, because that's what everybody can see.
Yeah.
when I was going through my divorce, anybody could say, "Oh, he's going through divorce," and
Yep.
your divorce made you think about
That's
that,
what they say.
or your mom passing made you think about that,
Yep.
or your life kind of falling apart
Yeah.
financially because of the recession that made you do that. Any of those things by itself, I'm like, all right, cool, I got that. You know what I mean? Like my mom passing away, one of the hardest things definitely I've had to deal
Absolutely.
with, up until today. But I could manage that. You know what I'm saying? The divorce, I can manage that as well. But all of it at the same time. That's where that
Overwhelming.
that pile up, and people can only see usually the thing on the top
Or
that they recognize or they resonates with. That's the thing that they see. Oh, this
right.
is the divorce. Well, I've been through a bad relationship before and I didn't feel that way. Or I've been broke before and I didn't feel that way. So they only see the thing that they resonate with, but they don't see all the other things that's underneath it that piles
Mm,
up, that puts even more pressure on you when you get to that point and you're like, you know what, I just can't take anymore. You know what I'm
exactly.
saying? And one of the other things that I wanted to mention too, because again, I've talked about my story a hundred times, but my daughter was the reason that I kind of came back, right?
Yeah.
And so what happened with my daughter, one day we're at home, we're at home, we're in the front yard of our house at the time, and this was before my divorce was finalized, so we were still in the same house too,
Okay.
even though we were already having the conversation. And this particular day, it was just me and my daughter was there, and I'm sitting on the front porch, and I got the little kiddie pool out with the sprinklers and whatever. And she probably was
Hmm.
6 or 7, maybe a little.
Okay.
I'd say about 6 or 7. She's probably like 6 or 7 at this time, and she's running and she's playing in the water sprinklers, and then she jumps in the pool and she's just running. I'm just sitting there watching her, and she's playing by herself for a while, and then she turns and she runs to me. When she gets to me, she starts crying, and I'm like,
Mm,
"What's wrong? Like, why are you crying?" And she said, "I miss my grandmothers," because at this
mm,
point, both of her grandmothers had passed. Her mom's mother and my mother had passed away.
okay.
And in that moment, now mind you, of course, she's not knowing that I'm having these thoughts and I'm going through all this stuff in my head. But I had to look at my daughter and really say, what will happen to her if I'm not here? And
Hmm.
in her 7-year-old mind, in
Mm,
the midst of a joyous moment, she has this second of grief where she just feels the presence, or should I say, the absence of both of her grandmothers in this moment. I'm like, what will happen to her if I'm not here? And my
mm.
daughter was my daughter. My daughter's my only child. She's still my
Yeah.
only, and she was a daddy's girl, still a daddy girl. She's going to be 23 this year, so this was a long time ago. But but it was just in that moment that I was like, if for no other reason, I got to stay here for her. I got
Yeah.
to be here for her, and that was the thing that gave me that one thing that I could hold on to in that moment until I became strong enough to start you know digging myself out of that hole. And of course, I had other friends and family that, again, like yourself, that came to the rescue. It's like, all right, let me help you. Like even
Yeah.
my one friend that literally came and got me, like we're going outside, like I'm like
Yeah.
literally dragging you outside. You know what I mean? But I think it's important that people know that, just like you can't judge what a person is going through and how whatever that you can see may not be the only thing that they're dealing
Mm,
with. You know what I'm
mm.
saying? And you can't judge a person that's in that space, especially if you've never been there. And again, I
Right.
don't want you to understand it. I don't want
No,
you to get so low that you can be like, oh yeah, I
I
know
don't
what
want
it
anybody
is,
to
but
feel.
I would never want you. I'd rather you just take my word for it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And I
Mm.
say that all the time, just like, just take my word for it. You don't want
Yeah,
to be there. You don't want to get in that space because again, everybody don't make it out of that.
they don't. But I love how you talked about how your daughter felt that emotion in that moment. Because I keep telling people, kids feel everything. We
Hmm.
swear we're shielding them, even if we're not arguing in front of them, they feel the energy.
Yep.
And even if we try to use, oh, I'm staying in it for the kids as an excuse, that doesn't work. They still can pick up on that. And children are better off with two happy, healthy, emotionally grounded parents living in
Mm.
two separate environments than two unhappy, unstable adults under the same roof.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
powerful that she was at such a age and she felt that because my son could feel it. I couldn't tell him what was going on. He knows now, of course, because it's in the book and he's 18. But then I was judging myself. I felt like a bad mom. I'm like, how could I do this to him? How could I do this to them? Right? That guilt. Plus, then I got to go to work every day. I was in human resources. How am I showing up for people when I am drowning on the inside? And
Mhm.
nobody around me can see it because we lack empathy and emotional intelligence in our culture. So we can't see when somebody is suffering right in front of us unless of course you have that empathy and you have that language. Because for me, I can feel it. I can tell when somebody's not okay. And I tell people all the time, stop judging a book by its cover because that doesn't tell you anything. We all put up this facade, we put on this mask. I'm fine, but I'm really not. And then if I tell you I'm not fine, do you have space to support me? Or are you
Mhm.
going to kick me when I'm down? Because let's be honest, Ernest, in our culture, we'll be called selfish, go pray, go take a nap, that's crazy, you foolish. Don't want to hear
Mhm.
that. All of the wrong things to say, except how can I support you? What are you feeling right now? I love you. I want you here, but what can I do to make you see that you're worth living? See, that's the type of thing we lack in our culture. So this is why
Yeah.
it's so difficult for us to be honest when we are not okay.
Yeah, and I think it's important because as a result of when I was going through and kind of getting on the other side of that, one of the things I did, I went to I started taking bereavement
Good.
support sessions,
Yeah.
and I loved it. I really did, and I went through my sessions that I had, but then I stayed there for a whole year as a volunteer. And then after I left there, I started a nonprofit called Ann Christine Charities, right? Because my mom name was Ann and my mother-in-law name was Christine. And
That's good.
so I started Ann Christine Charities, having to start doing bereavement support in the community, right? And teaching those very things that you were saying. Like, how would you support someone, if they told you that they were hurting, or if you
Mm,
just recognize that they were hurting, how would you help them? How
right.
could you hold space for them? What is the language, outside of the cliches that it's going to be okay and they're in a better space, and
Right.
all of those things that don't do anything, right?
Right.
And so really starting to kind of teach people, like, this is how you handle this situation. This is how you show up for someone. This is what you say. And then even sometimes this is what you don't say or don't say anything.
Exactly.
Just your
Right.
presence and support
That's
sometimes is
right.
enough. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? And again, like you said, we don't always have that in our communities. And so I was very passionate about it, to kind of bring that,
Yeah.
into my community itself. And I like how even mentioned now that, your son didn't know, really what was going on during that time period, but now he, knows
Mm,
because he's read the book and he's old enough.
right.
My daughter shared that moment with me because when I did my TEDx talk, she actually was there in the audience, and so it was her first time kind of hearing that story. And that she was older, much older by then, so I'm sure she didn't even remember that
Yeah.
moment, but even having conversations after that, talking to her about, like, you saved my life, because even though, you are hurting in that moment, I was hurting as well. And that's part, again, we talk about attraction and being able to feel that. And even in her happiest, like I said, one of her happiest moments, um, I think some part of her did feel that, connection
She
that I
did.
was there too. You know what
She
I'm
did.
saying?
Yeah.
And yeah, and I told her, like, when we had the conversation now as a young adult, like you saved me, because, you know, I was on the brink, I was on that edge, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a cool thing to be able to have that conversation with your kids, you
It
know what I'm
is.
saying? Especially when they have played such a uh, monumental part in your healing.
Yeah.
Um, and then you never know what they're going to need.
Exactly.
As a young adult, there have been some conversations that I've had with my daughter and even some of my nieces and nephews and some of the younger people that I come in contact with, who are struggling with those same thoughts.
Yeah.
And again, one of the things are definitely different. I'm going to be 50 this year, right? So
Okay.
things are definitely different from when we grew up, and
Yes.
it's sometimes we want to look at the hardships that we had and the things that we made it through, and be like, oh, you guys are soft or whatever,
Right.
and it's like, again, it goes back to what I said earlier. Like, you can't judge their level of pain just because
Hmm.
their pain, your threshold for the pain that they may be feeling may be higher. It does not neglect the fact that their pain is their pain, and the
Right.
level that they're operating in may be too heavy for them. And we have to be, again, as a culture, as a people,
Yes.
just as humans, to be
Yeah.
able to recognize that and have that empathy for each other, and being able to connect, and just like, what, let me not judge, but let me try to be supportive at the same time.
I get so tickled when I hear people say that these kids are soft. And at
Mhm.
first I thought it was offensive. But I said, you know what? They are soft. They deserve to be soft because
Mhm.
we were harder. The generations before us were harder because
We
they were
had to be.
surviving and struggling. They had to be. So
Yep.
because our ancestors did it, now we done did it. Now they get to live in a softer life and a softer world. The
Mhm.
world is softer. Emotional intelligence and emotional literacy is going to be a requirement. It is not a
Mhm.
luxury. This is part of history. Emotional health is going to be something that has to be taught to our students because they do feel things more deeper. Your daughter was 6, 7 years old feeling that. She didn't know that, but that's
Mhm.
exactly why she opened up and she told you that. Now imagine if she had a different type of father or a mother who did not have space to comfort her, to tell her it was okay to feel that way. We have
Mhm.
to be softer and we got to give them the tools necessary so that they can be resilient and not allow the world to overwhelm them because the world is still going through a shift. But these
Yeah.
children, this generation, and the ones that come after, they're the leaders. They're ready. They get it. We're the ones that's still stuck in the chaos and the old way of living. They're supposed
Yeah.
to be soft. And it's up to us to make sure that we give them a world and the language to be soft in.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's really important because I was having this conversation recently with someone else, just talking about the rise of electronics and AI and all of that. And I'm like, in the future, it's going to be really hard. The hardest thing that these generations coming up is going to have to face is the human connection, because
Yeah,
we're getting so disconnected from each other.
connected.
I'm like, we're already teaching social emotional learning in school because there's a disconnect now. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? And then with the more and more technology and things of that nature, it's like the disconnect of just human connection is going to
Yeah,
be really tough in these generations to come. And so it's definitely something that we need to address and start addressing now. And again,
yeah.
like you said, giving the words to use and the language, to be able to express and to connect with one another. We definitely got to do that. Um, Before we get out of here, you do have, we mentioned the book several times, right? And so I want us to talk about the book a little bit, and then I wanted to talk about your podcast as well. So let's start with the book. I know it's your story, but give us a little bit more in depth about the book and what it is that you want the readers to walk away with after reading it.
So it's my story, but it's also a workbook because I talk about the path of healing that I actually walk, the mental, the spiritual, as well as the emotional. Because by the time you read my story, you're going to feel the emotion. So now that you are in the emotion, what is that bringing up for you? Because I believe we're reflections of each other. And my story, most often than not, is going to trigger a wound or something emotionally in any reader, whether that's male or female. And in fact, the audiobook will be out at the end of March because I'm getting a lot of feedback about people wanting to
Mhm.
hear it. And I actually narrate it, so I'm excited about that. But it's actually a gateway, a pathway for us to start to deal with the emotional wounds. You talk about grief. Grief is one of those things that we never talk about. I lost my
Mhm.
mother at 16. Nobody knew what to say to make me feel better or how to console me, and I held it in. But what I did try to do is find a relationship to jump into so that they can feel the void and feel the wound. So healing
Mhm.
out loud is about to teach you how to become your own medicine because I didn't know that. And that's just one of the things that I teach, and that's what the book is about. But also, I actually do speak, and I'm an emotional literacy consultant. So I go into communities, schools, K through 12, universities, corporate spaces, because emotional intelligence, emotional literacy is required in every area. And when I tell people, when you become more emotionally aware, emotionally evolved and grounded, it changes you on
Mhm.
every level of your life. The way you communicate, the way you show up in the world, your relationships, the people you attract, the foods you eat, the way you spend money, the way you attract money, it's all connected. So once you start to heal those things within you, the world shifts, you evolve, and so does the world around you.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Let's talk about the podcast really quick as well.
So my podcast, actually the one I have now on my channel, KS Empowerment, is titled "Make It Make Sense," and I have a co-host named Augustus Carter. And when we first started out doing the podcast, it was us trying to make sense of the things that we don't talk about in terms of
Mhm.
dating, relationships, spirituality, the Bible, religion, all of the things that are usually taboo. But ultimately, it's to awaken people, to help us start to unpack and unlearn the things that we thought were normal, the stories that we were told growing up, to start to see that that's not really true. And how do we start to live for the future and the present, right? The present and the future, I should say, living for today and what tomorrow is going to bring. Because, like I said, I had this life where I thought I was supposed to be married, doing a 9 to 5. And then I realized that I wasn't living in my purpose. That was not the story that God truly built for me. So, what does that look like now? If you decided that one day you don't want to have that type of life, what kind of life do you want? And it's okay to be honest about that. And it's okay to talk about the things that we shouldn't challenge, like some of the things that we were talking about religion or education or culture. It's okay to have those conversations, even if we agree to disagree. But
Yeah,
ultimately, it's to help awaken us and to actually see what our truth is.
I
But
love it.
also, I haven't mentioned this one yet, but I'm actually also going to be doing my own individual podcast titled Healing Out Loud Uncensored, because I want to actually start to bring in more masculine, the divine masculine, because there's a lot of black men that want to
Mhm.
have these conversations. They are ready to heal. And I want to bring more awareness and more light to suicidality in black men, because the rate that we are losing black men by suicide is so alarming. And I'm just fully committed to saving as many lives as possible. Not to say that women don't die too, because we do,
Mhm.
but men just take more drastic means, which is why
Yeah.
there's more successful with their attempts. So that will be coming up as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love that.
Thank
I
you.
definitely volunteer to be one of your first
Yes,
guests when you're
please.
ready. Uh,
You
but
already in.
I want to thank you. I want to thank you for coming on. And I want to talk about grief, but I don't even want to get started on
I
that because that's a whole nother thing that I'm sure we'll be on here for another half an
yes.
hour. So maybe we'll just have to have you come back and
I was
we can
You
talk
read my
about
mind.
grief.
I was just about to say that's just another episode. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, so we'll
Yeah.
definitely have to have you come back
Right.
and we'll talk about grief. But again, I want to thank you so very much
Thank
for
you.
coming on. This has definitely been an enlightening conversation. And I've had the conversation again. I'm very open about my experience with suicidal ideations, and just to be able to have a candid conversation about really what that looks like from your point of view. I think it's very has been very eye opening for me, and I think it'll be
Thank you.
very helpful for my audience as well. So again, thank you for being on. I want you to have the last word, right? And I
Yeah.
want you to leave us with word of advice or motivation, inspiration, however you feel, and
Okay.
also leave us with your social media handles and things of that nature. And so I'll give you a couple seconds
Okay.
to think about that. To my audience, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Make sure that you guys are following us on our website, dealhealfulfill.org. Again, that's dealhealfulfill.org, which is our website. You can go there and find out some of the things that we have going on and just more about the organization as a whole. So make sure you guys are checking us out there. Ebooks by ejames.com, which is where my ebooks used to be. As you guys know, I've been telling you guys that website was going away, and it is gone. However, you still can get your copies of the ebooks, and what's even more, you can actually get them for free now when you join the Deal to Heal School for Living. So when you go to the Deal to Heal School for Living, again, that's our new platform on the school community platform. Or you could just hit the scan the QR code in the corner. It will take you right there. But there is a tab for resources, and you can go there and get all of the ebooks absolutely free. So again, make sure you guys go check us out on the Deal to Heal School for Living in our school community. Deal to Heal Tees is still open, so we do still have our inspirational t-shirt line. So as Deal, the number two, healtees.com. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tee and be inspired all day. That is our tagline. And also our podcast merch is there as well, which is our t-shirts with our podcast logos on it. There is one for the Girl Dad Discussions podcast, as well as one for the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Both of those, as well as some of our other t-shirts, can be found again at deal2healtees.com. That's the word deal, the number two, healtees.com. Which is our inspiration, the t-shirt line. One of the other things that I've been blessed to be a part is an organization called the Forgiveness Mission. And what we do, we have free virtual workshops bi-monthly talking about the area of forgiveness, forgiveness of self, forgiveness of others, even forgiveness of the world. So the information that we give is priceless, even though the workshop itself is absolutely free. So you guys can go to forgivenessmission.com to sign up for our next free virtual workshop talking about forgiveness, what it is, what it isn't, and why it's so important for us, ourselves, and our world that we learn to forgive one another. So again, go to forgivenessmission.com to sign up for our next free virtual workshop. So whenever you're listening to this, either a workshop just ended or there's one coming up. So you can again go to forgivenessmission.com in order to sign up for that workshop. Last but not least, I am proud to announce that we have started our nonprofit. So we just started up our nonprofit, which is Deal to Heal the World Incorporated. You guys can go there to donate and make a donation for us to be able to help the community even more than we do. We do a lot of things in the community and we want to do more, but we want to do it at no cost to the community. So we want to have different events and workshops and things like that to help the community, but we don't want to have to charge the community in order to do it. So please, any donations that you can give, the links will be in the description. You can go to Deal to Heal the World Incorporated to find out more information and ways that you can give to help us support our mission to help others to heal, deal, heal, and fulfill. So again, make sure you guys go to the descriptions and check that out. Miss Keana, once
Yes.
again, I want to say thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story and your expertise. I really appreciate it. I want you to have the last word, so the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you again for having me. You can find me on my website at iamkeanashateen.com, KeanaShatten, as well as Instagram, Facebook at I am Keana Shateen, TikTok at KS Empowerment, and YouTube at KS Empowerment with the capital E. And I would just like to leave the listeners, the survivors, the subscribers of Deal to Heal with pain is inevitable, and we realize that life will continue to life, and God will continue to put us in battles and give us things that we have to endure that won't make sense, right? Because that's life. But pain is inevitable. However, silence is optional. And healing, I believe, is meant to happen out loud. So continue showing up, continue healing, and continue speaking your truth. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I really I like that. Silence is optional. That is great, man. We can't end it no better than that. To my listeners, thank you guys once again for tuning in to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast, where our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. To deal with your problems, to heal from the pain, and to fulfill your purpose. Until next time, you guys be blessed.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Deal to Heal with E. James podcast. Remember to listen, like, subscribe, and share. This episode has been brought to you by Deal to Heal Teas. Put some inspiration in your situation. Wear an inspirational tea and be inspired all day. Let's go to dealtohealteas.myshopify.com. Remember, our mission is to help you to deal, heal, and fulfill. Deal with your problem, heal from the pain, and fulfill your purpose. Thanks for listening.